Hey folks, this is Vint with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and what you're about to watch is an overview slash interview with game developer McDonald over at Sentient Games. He is kickstarting The Last Command over on Kickstarter on June 11th, 2024. It is a dual deck builder where players will be using their battleships in an attempt to destroy the other player. So it's a 1v1, which is kind of cool, similar to Star Realms, if you've ever played that. If you're interested, I'll put a link in the description for you, and you can click on that and learn more about the game. Well, without further ado, enjoy the show.
Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, good. How are you? It's Vincent, right?
Right, and you're Ty?
Yeah.
Ty, okay, cool.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. I'm looking forward to this one, actually, just because this game, from what I hear, is a cross between like FTL and Star Realms, and I really enjoy both games. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you got going on with this one.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, it's kind of my 3-year love letter to, well, actually, it's closer to 4-year love letter to FTL. Because I didn't really see a game that had that sort of like broadsides battle feeling you get when you like jump into a new space and there's a ship there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was trying to do, actually. Did I mention that to you, or did you just feel that way when you saw it?
I did some research.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
just so I could be prepared into what I'm getting into.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, from what I saw, it's like a 1v1, one player is the blue, or it looks like there's two factions. There's like the Federation, and let me look at the rulebook because my memory is awful. Yeah, the Federation and the Sunder. And each player chooses a faction, and then I guess you choose one of the battleships, and then you just have at it. So
yeah, basically. Yeah, and a lot of, even though it's a dual deck builder, a lot of the gameplay is fairly similar to Star Realms, except there are, of course, other things it doesn't have, like power for, individual systems and stuff like that. But
that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you want me to sit down at one of the colors, or do you need access to both?
No, I can move around. Red's probably going to be the best to showcase stuff because it's where I have the crew facing right now.
Gotcha.
You can play. I usually in real life will play with the malfunctions and the crew off to the side on the other side.
Okay.
But I wanted to keep the rulebook up here, so.
Gotcha. Yeah. So from what I was reading in the rulebook, there's actually two different purchase rows because there's two different decks, like you were saying. There's the crew purchase row, which is in the middle, and then you've got the systems on the right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. And the malfunctions, are they optional, or are they always in the game? Do they act as like critical damage cards?
It's basically a bleed or a reoccurring damage.
Okay.
It doesn't take up your draw when you draw it. You basically just, like, say you drew one that had been put into your system deck and you drew it. It just basically immediately goes to your discard, and then you would take a damage. But you get your draw back, so you could then draw from either deck.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So, well, thanks for agreeing to do this. Again, I'm looking forward to this one. When is the Kickstarter? Do you know when the Kickstarter is going to launch, or is it still like up in the air at this point?
So I've been shooting for June 11th for a while now, and we're on track to hit it. Been working really hard to make that happen, but we're gonna make it, I think. So
that's cool. How prototype is this? Because when I interview developers, sometimes their game is like in the super early stages, and what I see on tabletop is nothing like the final version.
Sure.
Is this version here close to finished?
It's pretty close. Like, these are going to be neoprene mats that are basically this shape, and they come in the box. And then the cards are all, like, we're doing ongoing balancing, so that's going to continue until, right up until I send it off to the manufacturer. But it's gotten very honed in. We've been working on it for a real long time now. And as the thing that's probably furthest, well, I don't know if behind's the right word, but would be artwork. There are some placeholder ones. They usually say placeholder on the card, on the art part of the card, that are still being drawn. But we're approaching about 70% done with that, and we're on track to finish by the end of the Kickstarter, or right about there. So
for the record, this is amazing. Like, I don't know what it is about like sharp blues and sharp reds, like that. I love the color scheme, like this Dexier symbiote, like the blue. It's just it pops. I love it. Your artist
Oh,
did a
perfect.
fantastic job. And
Yeah, thank you.
if
We're
this
very
is not
proud.
final, then I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it. So that's cool.
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's tough when you've been working on something so long,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and I haven't. And throughout a lot of the process, I haven't gotten a lot of feedback. So like, it's kind of like it's all happening at once in these last few months. But
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, thank you.
No, no problem. Are you dealing with a publisher at this point, or are you?
Um, I had I had an offer, and it might be something I take up at some point, but I kind of want to just see how it goes, with
Gotcha.
my initial Kickstarter run. So no, I am self-publishing it at least initially, and
Gotcha.
there, it may be taken up at some point, but we'll see.
Is that through your Sentient Games? I saw that under Board Game Geek. Is that your?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I am
gotcha.
an LLC, so yeah, it's
Okay,
Sentient Games LLC.
cool. That's cool. Okay, saves me from having
Yeah,
to reach out to anyone else. That's good. Okay, so,
yeah.
all right. So, is how many different battleships will come with the game? Like, I see the Imperator and the Heart of
Yeah.
Valdespar. I'm
So,
guessing there's going to be different ones that you can pick between, or how does that work?
So no, the to keep costs down, the ships are just the ships for now. It is something I plan if I do expanded content for the game. That's something I would look into for sure. But
Okay.
right now, it's just the two factions. So the Heart of Valdespar is the Federation remnant ship, and then the Imperator is the Sunder ship. And then what I've done to mix stuff up is there. If you come over here for just a second, there
Mm-hmm.
are asymmetrical cards, and I also have other versions of the game where you could just do different sets of starting cards that
Oh,
are already
okay.
in the game. You could even choose to mix the game up, but these cards here replace the system cards for your faction, and then sort of lean into their thematic elements for each side. And then I do plan on adding more of these at some point, probably not. And I do have a few extra cards planned to possibly add for the Kickstarter, but they wouldn't be like faction specific. But that is something I can more easily add than adding like whole new ships. But that is essentially the same idea. These are
Okay.
diversifying
No,
the
that's cool.
game.
That's cool.
Yeah,
At least
yeah,
there's some variety there through. So you're getting variety through the cards and not through the battleships. So that's
yeah,
totally
yeah.
fine.
Because essentially these two decks do represent your battleship with the actual outline that
Hmm.
is the mat just being sort of a sort of a vehicle for playing your system cards and your crew cards, because basically your ship is your system cards, and then your crew is just your crew.
Hmm.
So that is what really makes it unique. There aren't like abilities that are reflected anywhere on the mat proper. It's really just a tracker, kind of like a display. That's even kind of how we built it, was just to kind of be like a heads up display, sort of looking out over the battlefield. So
Okay. Cool.
yeah.
So do you already have something set up, or so how does I guess the game typically play out? I was again looking through the turn reference, and I mean it looks like a typical deck builder in that you get a hand of, well, in this case, 3 cards, and then
Mhm.
you can play them if you want to, and I think any that you don't play you get bonuses for. And then you can make market purchases, and then you draw back up to 3 again. But I defer to the expert here, so however you
Oh
want to
yeah,
take me through this.
I could give you the quick run through. Yeah, so basically, it's a dual deck builder, and this deck represents ship upgrades. Basically, it's a system deck. And when you play a system card, this is one exception here because this one actually gives power. But you typically, when you play a system card, they have to consume power from that system. Like this card would cost, and they have to be played in their system. So this is a comms card, right?
I
And
see.
so it has to be played in comms, and it has to consume 3 power in order to be played in the system. So
I
I
see.
couldn't play this right now because I only have 2.
Right.
But the thing is, when you draw cards, you can draw them from. You have complete control over which deck you're drawing them from. So it's pretty common that you had also drawn a crew member on your turn, especially if you're worried about being able to pay for a card.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had this crew member in my hand, I could play them into comms, and just playing them below here is considered station. They're considered in that system.
Gotcha.
And
So
then, yeah, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, so your hand of 3 cards that you can draw from either deck. I'm guessing. So
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
can do 2
Yeah,
from the one from the other.
yeah. And you draw one at a time. So if you're curious what you're going to run into, like, say I had drawn this. Oh, I draw more than one. Oh, I drew the whole deck.
Mhm.
Say I had drawn this card first for one of my three, and I'd be like, well, shoot, I don't have quite enough power. Well, then typically what I would do would be to draw a crew member to see, what kind of crew member I get, and then how much power that crew member might be able to provide into that system. So if I played this one first, this crew card, then the power would go up to 4.
Okay.
And then I could go ahead and play this card for 3, and then trigger its main ability, which is just what's in the middle of the card.
I see. So the cost of the card to buy it from the market is in the upper left.
Yes, that's just like Star Realms.
Gotcha. And the cost to play the card on your turn is in the upper right, assuming you've got it. And then, like you said, the ability is in the middle bottom area.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. And so then I would play my third card, whatever it was. But it is good to know that your draws do go up typically. So give you a quick good example. There are a lot of cards that do it, like this one right here. Like, let's say this was my third card I had drawn, and maybe I didn't play this one because I remember I was short on power. So maybe I just sorry, I'm making a mess out of this. Maybe I just discard it instead and get the 2 credits that you can always get, right, for discarding a card. Okay. Then I could play my engineer here over in engineering and, get the power or the repair. But see, at the end of my turn, whenever you get a card draw, these are system bonuses that you get at the end of every turn. And it's for the top system card in every single system. So you see, because I have an engineer in engineering where this card is face up, it would up your draw at the end of your turn to be 4 cards instead of 3.
Cool. So the crew and the systems, they act like, this is like an engine builder too. I'm guessing then cards carry over from round to round.
Yeah, they do, exactly. So this would stay up. And then on your next turn, you would draw, 3 more cards. Let's say I drew these. And then I can't quite make another bonus with this, but let's say, you had this here and this here. Then the goal would be to, for a lot of people, this isn't always the case, but one of the goals might be, well, I'm going to play this comms expert I drew here, because I also want to get the 3 credits at the end of this turn in addition to the extra card draw. Oh, actually, we would have drawn 4 cards that turn. So anyways, yeah, you can kind of see how it spirals like that. So before you know it, you've got different cards in all the different systems and different bonuses. So you could think about what you want to try to be a reoccurring bonus at the end of every turn. But then when it really gets interesting, at least for me, is let's say you draw another card that you already have, one in the system, like this comms card right here, but I drew the Pirate Rex card. Well, when you play it, it's played over the other card.
Okay.
So now you're changing out what the reoccurring bonuses are that you're getting at the end of the turn are. And also sometimes that changes what crew are benefiting from that bonus at the end of the turn. Like this card you said you liked, the Dexier Symbiote. See, now instead of it needing a comms expert, it's switching it over to an engineer. So you really got to be really thoughtful about like where your crew are and then what cards are in your deck. And there's a lot that can happen that way.
I see. So just to make sure I understand it, let's take a look at the teleporter real quick. So at the moment, because there's a cadet vector, which is green, and a cadet Malkesh, which has the blue symbol, at the end of every turn, I get the green and the blue bonus, but not the red one because I don't have a red crew on the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you get multiple greens? So like if I had 2 green crew, would I get that bonus twice, or does it only come into play once?
It is only once, except there are exceptions to the rule that they always stipulate if they're an exception. So here, let me show you one really quick.
Cool.
So this is a pretty powerful card. Actually, this is in FTL, so you'll probably like this. See this card right here?
Oh, yeah.
The charge laser.
Someone's been playing that game. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Don't tell Subset Games.
I won't.
They'd probably be fine. They'd probably be fine with it.
Yeah.
But you see, it's got 3 engineering symbols here, which just because there is a limit of 3 crew that you can have in any system.
Okay.
That just means basically for every engineer that you have in tactical when you play when you trigger this system bonus at the end of your turn, you would get the 3 the 3 power. So essentially, the charge laser is very expensive. You have to find a way to power it
Hmm.
because it costs eight power, right? But then once, let's say you spent that on your turn and you did 4 damage, well, it doesn't really matter because if you had 3 engineers in this system, or let's say you even just had 2 engineers in this system, well, then at the end of your turn, you're going back up to 6 just
I
for
see.
free, basically. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's really cool. All right. So, wow. Okay. That I
Yeah,
can
it's interesting, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, I like that. Now, can you directly destroy your opponent's systems? And I guess if you can, it would just remove the top card of the system. Like if, I guess like
Yeah,
this
so
one.
that's something we looked into. There's a tiny bit of take that way that are usually abilities on the cards, and there's really only a couple at this point.
Hmm.
For the most part, we kind of removed that. We used to have some malfunctions that would, siphon power and stuff like that, and that's something that I'm thinking about having even in the Kickstarter is maybe having an alternate malfunction type that you can shuffle in the into the decks that does something like that. That's something I'm thinking about. But we took that out of the standard version of the game
Hmm.
because it was a little bit too much take that, and I really wanted people to be able to actually play what they wanted to play. It's more about you building a really good synergetic system between your crew and your ship upgrades, your system cards, than it is about messing with every little thing that your opponent does. Now, there are exceptions to that. For instance, this card right here, the Dexter Symbiote, discard up to 3 of your opponent's in-play cards. So your opponent could have a really good synergetic system going on, maybe even a nice little loop. There's a few of those that you can build. But see, you could screw that up just by playing, this card, because now you're moving those cards to the discard and they're not benefiting from their reoccurring bonuses or whatever else they may be using the card for.
That's
So
cool. Can you equip a system card to a system, but then not play it because you don't have the energy? Like if I only had one energy, like this comms, for example, only has one energy, but I wanted to play
mhm.
this Dexier symbiote card here, even though I don't have two energy to play it this turn.
Oh, like a tuck kind of thing.
Correct. Yeah, I could put it there now, and then in the future, when I do get the energy for it, I could play it later. Like,
No, we decided not to do that, and the reason was because we needed a way that you could consistently get credits, and so the idea that if you couldn't play it, you could just discard it and get credits at whatever time
I see.
you wanted, ended up being at least up to this point a more convenient way to deal with cards that you couldn't play. Um, this isn't directly connected to what you said, but there is something adjacent to it you might want to know, which is there are cards like this one, and there's at least one of these for every system,
Okay.
where you always trigger the top ability, which would just be this will always do 2 repair when you play at the repair drones. But you see, you also get an extra repair for every card it covers.
I see.
So there are plenty of engineering tends to be pretty power heavy, but there are a lot of comms cards that are cheaper on the power spectrum.
Okay.
So since you're playing over multiple turns to build up your systems, it's pretty common that when you play a card like this one, you would get extra, repair or whatever from the ability for having cards under it. So
Okay. Now, just so I understand, this middle ability, like take a recruit to your hand or two repair and then gain one, is that only done one time? Like as soon as you play it and you have the energy to play it, that's it. On a future turn, the only thing that card is good for are the bottom abilities. Is that the case, or can you keep playing a card every? Can you keep playing that card every turn? Is
So no, typically you cannot play it. It is a one-time triggered ability when you play the card.
I
That's
see.
essentially what you're paying for when you play it. And those are intentionally usually very different from the reoccurring bonuses.
I see.
So that there's a lot of different interplay that way. There are cards. There's actually a decent amount of cards. Because one of the biggest complaints I've heard about deck builders, when I play a lot of them, so I felt it too, is you get pretty far into the game and you're like, I don't know why I'd want to buy cards anymore because I have my decks built up and they're just sitting here in my discard.
Right.
But there's a good amount of cards in the game, like this one, that let you, or like the one you showed me, take a recruit to your hand,
Hmm.
or like this one, there's especially a lot of comms cards that let you sort of work your discard or the cards that you have in play. Um,
Okay.
to be able to make use of those. For instance, like this one answers your question you mentioned. Let's say you had a card you really liked in play, and you're like, man, I want to be able to play that again. Well, there are cards like this one where you can take an in-play card to your hand and then be able to play it again, provided that you have the power. But that becomes less of an issue typically later in the game. In addition to crew providing power, there are system cards that provide power as well. They're usually engineering ones. There's just a few, but they can really help, get a lot of power where you need it. So.
Gotcha. And the same with the crew. The abilities on the bottom of these crew cards, those are a one-off. Like you whenever you play them, that's the only time you would play that, and then they just stay on the ship because their icon contributes to the system. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
exactly. So crew are very simple. They're just you play them, and most of them are power and one little thing. Like this is a malfunction repair. You can repair one that's in your discard. Your starting crew are pretty much the only ores. So it's either the power or whatever their other bonus is. But yes, once you play the crew, that's basically all they do. With the only other limiting factor to playing crew being that you can only play 3 in a system.
Okay. And I like the idea of those bottom abilities because like part of me is like this teleporter, like, because it can do a wide variety of things. Like is it possible just to keep that teleporter on that space and play cards to comms and tactical for like 5 or 10 turns so I can
Yeah,
so I can keep compiling on that bottom green ability, like the bottom green
yeah,
system ability.
especially if that was your plan. Like if you bought lots of comms and tactical cards, that's going to be a little bit, or even crew, that's going to be a little bit easier, right?
Right.
Because what happens is, and I don't know, I don't think we've talked about this yet, but let's say all your other cards, you've played all your cards out of your system deck, and so it looks a little bit like this. You've got some discarded from that you purchased, and you want to draw a system card, but you don't have one anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what triggers a you building a new deck in this game. So if you go to draw a system card and you don't have one, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you would then take all of your system cards, and I won't drag these ones over right now,
Oh
but you would take all of
wow.
your system cards that you have in play, and you would put them into your discard with any other cards that have ended up in your discard for any other reason, and you would reshuffle them and make a new deck.
I
Now,
see.
where it gets really interesting is your crew stay out though,
Ah,
because
okay.
that deck has not been reset yet. So you also have control over when you want that to trigger. Like eventually you're going to probably have to trigger both of them multiple times to build a new system deck or a new crew deck, but you do have some control over that because you could be like, well, no, I want teleporter to stay out a little bit longer, and so instead of drawing from the system deck, you could choose to draw from crew, right?
I see.
And then they would stay out.
So
It would all stay out.
you're prolonging the deck by drawing from the other one. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, that's cool. Wow. Can you regain health? I mean, it looks like you can. It looks like the goal of the game is to do enough damage to your opponent to destroy them. What's that little? Oh, this is your credit tracker on the top.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And is that going to reset to 0 every turn, and then you just, or how do you
Oh
just
no, no. Everything's reoccurring. Power, or I'm sorry, not reoccurring. Everything is
persistent?
stays as a persistent. Yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
So like power stays, credits stay, and of course Hall integrity is just Hall integrity. So
Okay. So
yeah,
I like that. Yeah, I mean, like, that's one of my complaints with deck builders. I might have like if I'm playing Hero Realms or Star Realms and I've got 15 gold and nothing to spend it on, it sucks because
Mhm.
it's just a waste.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And when I play with most people online, and we reach like late game, I mean, there's a lot of times people just pass. Right? They're
mhm,
they're with money. I'm saying because they don't. It just doesn't matter
mhm.
anymore. Now, there are times in this game where, because of what's out, you get to late game and maybe you didn't draw the right thing. And so, like, it might not matter to you one turn, but I guarantee you eventually it will have some value to purchase, something even in the late game.
Okay.
So,
Neat. Was there anything else that we didn't cover? Or was that Was that
No, that is essentially how it works. I mean, you draw cards, you play them. When the deck's empty, that's how you rebuild a deck.
Mhm.
You mentioned repair. There's a lot of engineering cards that let you repair. They tend to be more uh,
Mhm.
consuming, but less expensive. Also, the engineers themselves from the recruit pile, um, a lot of them have healing abilities and such. So
Cool.
yeah, there's.
So
I think
you're
that's it. Market cards, system cards refresh when purchased. You put a new one out, but then
okay.
the crew ones are self replenishing. So when you purchase, well, you just the only engineer that's available, is the one on the top, and then when you purchase it,
Oh, I
it,
see.
it would be the next one up.
So
Yeah,
once they're gone, they're gone. It's just okay. So there's 8 of each crew type. Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
And how many
There's
cards do you start with? Like, is it just 3
Yeah,
cards in
so
the
it's
one and 3
just
cards in the
three,
other?
and they it's the three in it's the you use the symbol in the upper left hand corner because they don't have a credit cost. So
Gotcha.
there are three Sunder starting crew, and there are three like right here three system
Okay.
starting cards. So the starting decks are pretty small, and during testing that was something I was like, man, are they going to be too small? But you end up filling it out pretty quick with the first couple of rounds are pretty heavy purchase rounds, and then also malfunctions get added to the deck, that build them up pretty quick. It was a decision I had to make the dual deck building system work because if the decks were too big, you wouldn't actually be able to go through them,
Hmm.
more than a few times.
Right.
So I wasn't able to do like a 10 card, system like Star Realms or something has. But I think that's one of the reasons we don't see more dual deck builders. It took me a long time to make that decision.
No, I can understand. Well, yeah, I mean, it hasn't really been done a whole lot before.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
hmm
Yeah.
is there any big differences between the two factions? Like, is the Imperator focused more on attack, like their starter deck, compared to the other one? The Federation might be more shieldy.
Yeah. So we can take a look at that really quick.
Hmm.
So they actually they have a comms card, the system bonus, which could be a reoccurring one, where it's like this ship is also helping you in the battle, as long as you have a comms expert. So that's a reoccurring damage, which is a little bit more aggressive. And then additionally, their actual weapon lets you control the other player's spread, their engine building a little bit.
Oh, okay, cool.
And they have a way to provide more power to tactical than is typically the case using this ability right here.
Okay.
However, because they're so aggressive, you also take damage by doing that because it lets you cheat the power system that's built into the game just a
Hmm.
little bit. Whereas the Federation deck, like this basic laser, can do a lot of damage, especially if you're willing to keep it in play over time.
Hmm.
But other than that, they're a little bit more built towards managing the market and really, and then getting a small amount of power to each system. So if you're playing as the Federation, your goal is basically you need to engine build really smartly in order to be able to work all of your systems better than your opponent, because your opponent's playing a more aggressive game where they're micromanaging both the market using this ability as well as your setup using this ability. So
Gotcha.
yeah, there's definitely a thematic, um, you know.
It's got a Federation versus Klingons thing going on here. That's cool.
Yeah,
You,
exactly.
you
Yeah.
even have the holodeck I see as your background, which is awesome. The next gen holodeck.
Oh yeah, just
I love
yeah, that
that.
was fun. Yeah, and you might like this card. Hold on, this is kind of from Star Trek. Let me find one card if you like this.
Oh, goody.
Right here. I've had people comment on this one. They're like, "What? This is such a weird card to have in
Sonic
this thing."
showers. Is that supposed to be Jonathan Archer from Enterprise?
I don't know. I just thought I like it might be, but I like to think that it's our artist.
Yeah.
He put himself in it because I gave him the opportunity to make himself a crew member in the game, and
Uh,
he's like, that's okay. And he just like drew an alien, and but I let him like have fun with this one, and so I like to think that he snuck himself into the game, and that
what a way to do it. Yeah. It has to be the
yeah,
showers card.
yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
So
Um,
yeah, that's the basics.
nice. So, is there going to be, first of all, are you going to be retailing the game after Kickstarter, or is it going to be like a Kickstarter exclusive kind of thing?
No, I'm gonna work. I'm working towards retail.
Okay.
That is the plan. And then actually, the cheaper version of the game It's tough because Kickstarter, it sort of lends itself towards people thinking, oh, well, I got to get the deluxe for it to be nice,
Right.
but our standard edition of the game, which it will probably be $30, is very nice. And it's the one that I would end up selling to retailers and stuff afterwards.
That's cool.
But we will have a deluxe edition of the game as well that will add a few things, and it should be somewhere in the $50 range. So.
Cool. Do you have any ideas to like what stretch goals and exclusive stuff that you'll get through the Kickstarter? Are there any like
Yeah,
unique
yeah.
cards or like you said, the neoprene mats, for example?
Yeah, so the neoprene mats are actually going to be standard. And I'm not having like a cardstock mat or anything in either of the two versions. And the reason is that the mats work really well with the game, and B, if I was going to include them in the box, it was just cheaper to make the box fit them from the very beginning. So that is going to be the standard, yeah. And then as for stretch goals, all the typical stuff, early on, like upgrading the cards. Although even our base level card that we're starting with is going to be pretty nice. I think we're starting with a 310, but we're hoping to go up to like a 350, white core, I believe. So like that's going to be a thing. Upgrading the rulebook and box material. Basically, a lot of the early stretch goals are geared towards making the product as nice as possible.
Gotcha. All flashy.
And then, but I do have one card from each system that I'm working on in the background that I plan on having be stretch goals as well. Okay. Just to bulk that up a little bit. And then, like I said, malfunctions. There's definitely going to be more. This is actually placeholder art on the malfunctions. We haven't done that yet, but I plan on there being, instead of one malfunction art, there's going to be at least 2 or 3, and that would be stretch goal related. So I could, pay the artist.
Right.
But then also there might be another version of malfunctions that comes with the game that would be tied up in that.
Okay. So you mean like unique malfunctions, like ones that are not the same? Like, because the malfunction deck, it looks like they all do the same thing. But do you mean like a malfunction deck? Because there's a game called Fantasy Flight makes an X-Wing miniatures game, and the critical hit deck is all unique. Like this is a double damage card. This is a blinded pilot card. So
I wouldn't be able to make them like all unique at this point. There's just not enough time for it.
Right.
There might be like 1 or 2 different versions that could get shuffled in, and then when you're dealing a malfunction, you would be able to see what the top one was, and so it might influence like what you want to play when, depending on what kind of malfunctions are in the game. Yeah.
Okay.
So stuff like that, and then that's really the basics. There are other little things, but that's probably the most noteworthy, is just upgrading all the components. And then there'll be a handful of other things that affect, gameplay.
Cool. And I see that you've got some gameplay variants in the back of the rulebook here. There's asymmetric play and fog of war.
Yeah, so I like fog of war. So basically, because when I was building it, everyone's like, oh, you have to have asymmetric play. And I agree. I knew I needed more than just the symmetrical gameplay. The thing is that the way the game works, that's what Fog of War is. You can do your own thing very easily, because let's say you play the game and you're not happy with the amount of resources you have in the beginning. Maybe it's power, or maybe it's credits, or maybe it's like card draw, right? The thing is, you could go, I don't care, so you can go into the deck, the system cards or the crew, and just fill it out. Like, as long as you both agree, you can make this game whatever you want with the cards that are here. And it still works, because that's basically what you're doing anyways, once you buy cards. That's just what the game is. So as long as people agree, you can build your own starting cards. And since the quantities are usually so small, it's just 3 cards for each. It's pretty easy to do.
Right.
And, people are used to TCGs and stuff like that. So if you just take the kind of that view to the game, yeah, you could do basically anything you want.
Well, you're my people, because when I cover a board game, we're always making some kind of house rule to make it more, I don't know, more playable for us. And
me too. Yeah.
Some people are like, no, you got to play it like the developer intended. And I said, well, technically it's my game now. I can do what I want with it. you know.
Yeah,
So I
right.
mean, so I love that, you're that open to house rules and stuff like that. That's really cool.
Yeah. No, the symmetrical one, I tell everybody, even at the beginning of this rule book, I tell everybody like that's the standard play, and then, but really that was just for balancing,
Mm-hmm.
and so people can actually experience, it the same as their opponent, so it doesn't feel unfair. But yeah, what you said is true because once you know what the game is, you should be able to do what you want, and it's very easy to do that here. So.
Cool. Was there any talk or thought about either a team mode like a 2v2 or maybe even a solo mode against an AI Automa deck?
Yeah, so my final form for this game would be if it had an app. I'm going to answer your second question
Hmm.
first.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah.
Because you think about Star Realms, like how many people are playing it on the table anymore versus the app? Like most people aren't, or most people are playing it on the app these days
Right.
just because
Yes.
it,
Hmm.
it does like the shuffling and everything for you. And so this game would play incredibly on an app like that. But first, it has to make me some money.
Oh no, agreed.
That's just the truth. Yeah.
Hmm.
But yes, that is its final form. And then, oh, and so yeah, a lot of people are like, well, why don't you have a solo version built in? There isn't one. Just to be clear.
Okay.
And the reason is because I mean, you took a while looking at it. There's so many things you're trying to simulate here
Hmm.
that make it work that really without a computer or another person, it basically, if I made a solo mode, the best I've come up with is basically, you know, the other ship has like a laundry list of things that it's going through that it's
Hmm.
going to do to you. And maybe they could be random or whatever, but like it would lose all of the personality
Right.
that it has because the other side wouldn't be playing at all the way the game actually works, you know?
Right.
Um,
You
anyway, so we don't, yeah,
You'd
so we
lose,
don't
like you
have that.
said, yeah, you'd lose the human element to that. I mean, you could simplify it and be like, well, the AI player draws two system cards, and whatever the effects are, that's what they do to you. Or I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud and
Yeah,
spitballing. But
right.
like
And
you
I did
said,
think of that, but then it's
mhm,
like, well, power is a huge balancing factor in the game, and now it
right,
doesn't. It's not applicable. And then how do you factor in like system bonuses and stuff, especially when they relate to power? Like it just gets, it kind of
messy.
falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I do believe that like if I had a small team or I had an extra, year or something, I could work that out. But I'm already so far into this game that rather than hold it back, I want to just get
You're
it.
ready. You're ready. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've already held myself back so long on this project. I need to get it out, So that's where we are on that. But like I think it would work really well with an actual AI or a computer player.
Hmm.
Even the way it is now. And so if I get enough interest, that's something I plan on working on,
Okay.
right away. If it got a lot of interest, that's something I would work on right away.
Cool.
As for your two-player thing,
Hmm.
you can. I have played a version where, okay, I'll make this story short. So two years ago, I full stopped on this game because I had a bunch of people tell me, well, you can't sell just a two-player game, not
You can.
not in this climate. Yeah, I know. But the people that told, it was multiple people, and they came on so strong, and I was like, okay.
Hmm.
So I have to take the thing. I was like, okay, I have to take the thing I love, and I've got to find a way to make it four player. I just do. And so I said, I took like, I wasted like a year on this
Oof.
trying to make, yeah, and it lost all of its heart and soul because I mean you could do it, but the way it happened was it would get so long winded, just everything, that it just wasn't fun
Right.
anymore.
Hmm.
Um, so after a year went by, I was like, you know what? No, I'm just going to take it back and do what I wanted to do,
Right.
which was this. Now, however, that said, I'm not going to be selling like in one box a two-player version.
Right.
But one thing I have done that does work is if people buy two, now
Right.
I get that's expensive and stuff, but if people buy two, you can set up one market between the two
Hmm.
sets of people, and then it's sort of like a fleet battle where you have the Federation people on one side and the Sunder on the other, and you can do it that way,
That's
where your
cool.
rules can either be you attack one ship, and then when that ship is destroyed, you can both team up on the other ship, or you could have it be free for all. Like I've done that, but
Mhm.
it's something I haven't added to the rule book or anything yet because I don't want people to feel like I'm forcing them to buy,
Right.
2 copies of the game, and I'm not in a place where I could put all that into one box.
No, no, it's understandable. That would a 2v2 I feel would require a different rule set altogether. So
Yeah,
yeah, to
but
do
it does
that,
work.
yeah, that's cool. I'm glad
Because
you're.
you can share one market. That's why it works. Is that it's not a huge table hog because you can just share the one market and stuff.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
No, I mean it's a cool idea, but I can completely understand why you'd want to stick to like a 1v1 for now because it
yeah,
just works better. I mean there are a lot of deck builders out there that are just 1v1 and they work. So
yeah. And they do tend to be a little bit faster than this one. We hadn't talked about time yet, but like Star Realms, once you're used to it, could be like 15 minutes, or less, I guess,
yeah.
maybe. This isn't that because this is. I like to think of it as like Star Realms escalated,
Yep.
so it's a more involved experience. It just is. It ends up being like what if you're not familiar with the game, you're going to spend more. You're going to spend an hour to an hour and a half on your first game,
Right.
just because there's a lot going on. But
hmm
like with people, even it shows people that get around to their second game, so i.e., people that aren't playing it all the time. It ends up being like 45 minutes or at least less than an hour. We've had some new people that played, the second game. It'd be like 30 to 40 minutes, but probably like 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. No, that's understandable considering that you've got a dual deck builder and you've got crew members that are doing this and powering these systems. I can see why there is
Yeah,
a time crunch on that, but that's really cool.
yeah.
Cool.
So
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate all the time
thank
that you
you.
spent, going over this. It's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing what the final version actually looks like. And I'll keep in touch before then. So,
Yeah, that sounds good. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm glad that this is. I'm glad it makes. Does it? Okay, let me ask you this: does it make you think of FTL now that we've described it?
yes and no. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, and see, in FTL, you're actually dragging people around to different systems to operate them, and they gain in skill level and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like FTL in the sense that you've got crew members that you are assigning to different systems. So that's really cool. And I when I think FTL, it's the classic. Your ship is on the left, their ship is on the right, and you're targeting
Hmm.
different systems. Although I cheese it in FTL, the first thing I do is blow up their lasers so they can't shoot at me. Then I just peck them
Oh
to
yeah,
death.
yeah.
That's
Of
the
course.
that's the standard, So, but yeah, it's similar to FTL, but like you said, it's got more Star Realms in it. But
Yeah,
it's got
true.
it's got a dual deck though, so it's like there's extra layers of strategy there. Do I draw from this deck and this deck or focus on this one? And it's only 3 cards as opposed to 5 in your hand per turn. So
Right.
there
Yeah.
there are some unique differences, and I think that's what sets it apart from both FTL and Star Realms. You've got your own little spin on things going, and that's a good thing because some people may go,
Oh
well,
yeah.
it's just
I
a
didn't
copy
want to
paste. Well, it's
copy.
not.
Yeah. 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 No. No. I didn't want to. Rip anything off. Like
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I have like basic laser and stuff that are direct.
Mm-hmm.
Directly inspired, as they say,
Right.
by that. But yeah, that was definitely not my goal. It's not as far along, and I ran into a similar issue as I did when people told me I had to make this game 4 player. But I have another game called Boarding Party, which it has the top down ship effect of
Oh.
FTL. Yes, I think I am capable of making other games, I swear. But this one has nothing in common with FTL other than that it has the top down room effect of that, and you
That's
have
cool.
little like space pirates that are walking around and trying to like gather resources, which are like party bottles and stuff
Nice.
like
Is
that.
this a game
So
that you've
there's
already
that.
published, or is this one that you're like thinking about making?
Oh, no, this is one I've been working on and off for a couple, well, almost 2 years,
Oof.
and
Yeah.
I'll probably self-publish it if I get around to finishing it. So
That's
yeah.
that's really cool. I'm glad to see more stuff like that. That's going to be fun. Well, think of me if you need more coverage on that because I'm
Oh, I definitely will. This has been my pleasure. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
Thank you
same
so
here.
much.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'll keep in touch and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
Okay, you too. Thanks again.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, bye.